We really wanted to come at you guys this week with a beautiful slew of roster movements, roster manias, roster chaos, big moves, small moves, all kinds of different moves. But now we don't have anything. We have a delay once again, which sounds like it came at the 24th hour, and a lot of coal. We hate to be Santa Claus here, but there's not too terribly much news other than some interesting movings-ons that has been going on. But outside of that, here we are, Tactical Crouch. Yiska, how are things?
Eventful. Looking forward to having to tell my family that I'll probably have to do roster stuff on Christmas. No less that my nephew also turns 1 on the 25th, of course. So that's a double whammy where I'm be sitting over my laptop going like, oh, really? You went there? And then trying to get some, quotes from those guys. Trying to do the, hint reporting type thing. Maybe I can nail some of them down prior. But yeah, I mean, this is unfortunately ruins my holiday. But I mean, that's to be expected, right? That's the game.
Sure. It is the game. It is. Is his birthday really on the 25th?
Yeah. Nailed it.
He's a Christmas baby.
Well, we Germans celebrate Christmas on the 24th. So it's kind of okay in the sense that, okay, you can probably like do Christmas somewhere 24th and then you drive to my sister, and like do the first day there as well. Also give him presents. The only thing, of course, sucks is that like I hope everyone remembers that this kid should get double there.
That's what I was kind of concerned about. Is just like I always feel for the kids who have like birthdays on holidays because eventually you're just getting like double dipped.
Yeah,
and just like, look, this is birthday and Christmas. Figure it out. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not doing two.
It's also not like everyone's like super good with managing their money in the sense like, oh yeah, I guess I gotta buy. I've a monthly allowance. I guess my recreational stuff is taking a backseat for December because I gotta buy all these presents.
Right.
If he was to have like somewhere in April or middle of the summer or whatever, like everyone has then the recreational income of that and could just butter in there. I don't think a lot of people just go like, okay, I would like if they were spaced out, I would give that, and now I do 2x. Right. I'm just making sure I already way overcompensated. I'll tell you that much. I already loathe wrapping. Like, at this age, there's still like a bunch of like small gifts. There's a book, and then there's crayons, and then there's like that little truck toy, and then there's this thing that makes loud noises.
Invest in bags. Invest in gift bags.
Yeah, but like I think it would be fun to wrap it in a way where it's like, it has like a zip thing around, so he just has to rip the cord and everything comes apart. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's not in the slightest, but I'm going to trust and believe that you know what you're talking about, and you're going to
take
thoroughly
a full day.
Hate yourself by the end of it.
Yeah.
And you're going to never do it again.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, by 2, I expect him to like be able to rip that shit the proper way and fold the paper so it can be reused next year.
Sure. That seems incredibly German.
Yeah,
reusing.
We're not actually doing that, but it sounds very German, right?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. But you know who doesn't sound German? Your burner account. I need everybody out there to know that Yiska has a. Well, I guess it's not a burner. It's technically a parody, and he thinks it's me. I'm here to tell you it's not me. That said, 272 is brought to you by our beautiful patrons. Avril Vista Bebe, Battle Crab, Refine Bean, Bronzebot Buhow, Picasso, Chris R34444, Kasha 67, Lolshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rex Sane, Stuck in Bronze, and our YouTube members, Ice Am Jello, William Jess, Fishman, Viralment 6, AK, Chris R, Brother, Stuck in Bronze, Samuel Spaza, Adam L, and Sagi Fumi. Yiska, tell them why it's not me.
I don't know. I didn't look at you when you said that. I need to, okay. Let me get into my Among Us brain where I just feel when you're lying, but nobody else does. So I vote correctly when you're the imposter, but nobody else does. And you have this magical like writer's plot where you can also not convince anyone that it's you. So, so that I remember this vividly from like 2020 when we played that, and it ruined my soul. So is fuck now? I think it's now called the cooler Yiska. Are you the cooler Yiska, or is
I
it a
am not the
community
cooler
effort?
Yiska. I have no idea if it is or is not a community effort.
You sure?
Positive.
You're
I'm
really
so
trying.
sure.
The funny thing is, you're trying so hard to not give any tells. It's beautiful, but I think I believe
there's
you.
no tells to give because I literally couldn't care less. I need everybody. I need the greater podcast universe to know. And if you want to be a part of this, you need to come to our community at discord.gg/Yiskout, I believe. Is that still the case?
It's tactical crouch actually. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So there's a Discord community out there. We sit in Discord chats all the time talking about absolutely nothing. Me when I'm posting all kinds of stuff. If you don't know what that is, you need to come in and check it out. It's an inside joke. But this has been the new drama for the last week and a half of Yiska deciding to play Among Us with a parody account that he might even be in charge of. I don't know.
Look, here's the problem, right? The correct play, the Nash equilibrium strategy, is to just ignore it.
It really is.
That would be the mature thing that most adults would opt to. Going like,
yep, and you on the other hand,
kind of funny. Now, I feel I should reward whoever came up with that because they're also doing a pretty good job, like putting false hints into the ether, like going like, okay, there's the like there, there's the like there. I still think there's inherently a community effort. I don't think it's one person. I think at this point, also like how it happens, so to explain it to the viewers a little bit, like we hang out in voice and then we talk about something and then something on the Twitter will happen. Like they like a comment or they follow a specific account or something like that. So they clearly are in voice, but now like, I could narrow it down, but the narrowing down doesn't make too much sense in terms of who it would then be logically. So I assume more than one person in the Discord knows who it is and they are communicating. It is either a smaller or larger community effort and they are trying to gaslight me. I think that's the strategy they're going after.
I see. That seems like a very just out there strategy for very, very little reward other than just to like get under your skin, which I guess they've probably accomplished at some point.
Lord knows I deserve it.
Yo, that's very true. For reasons that we don't necessarily have to get into today. But one of the things that we probably have to get into, speaking of strategy, is the Overwatch League's decision to once again delay the free agency window from today, December 2nd, day of filming. This will probably be out the 3rd, to December 23rd. A piece of information that it sounds like team managers and general managers found out day of, maybe even through Twitter, per some of them. Yiska, I have to ask you, as we kind of talked about this last week, this is kind of not good, yeah?
Yes. And okay, let me clue you in. General managers found out the same time last time. I think the email came 2 minutes maybe before the tweet, right?
Okay.
So at this point, it's like an established strategy. Why that is, I don't know. I don't think it's sloppiness. I don't think that's the reason. I don't know if they want to avoid leaks. I don't know if they want to shove out that decision as late as possible. I think Adam Adamu from Toronto had a counter argument as to, the general argument or the general notion was this is bad, right? This is a bad handling of the situation. Adam said, like, well, you want to maintain competitive integrity in the league, and the way to do this is to, try to find a solution for as long as possible until you can't, and then you shut it down, right? Like then, because here's the competitive integrity issue. By a lot of teams not knowing what their next year looks like, financially, they cannot really set budgets, and therefore they cannot make offers for certain players. That then dictates the transfer market, of course. Now, I can understand general managers saying, well, I already got my team. Yes, you got your team figured out. You have handshake agreements based on rates that are determined by you having to compete with less people. At least some of you will, right? So, and as far as that, like, I completely agree. There's a competitive integrity issue here. I will say, I think this also extends past the China problem specifically. I think this uncertainty factor is determined by other stuff. For instance, like, the rev share deal and whatnot. So
sure, and I just want to underline that there. So what you're saying, so that I really want to clue in people, because I think at this point it feels like maybe the general population is still very confused as to like what's going on. So what you're saying is that this delay is not necessarily just caused in your mind by the NetEase deal falling through and the general idea of relocation.
I mean, I think this is the primary reason for sure. I think this probably wouldn't have happened if, right? Now here's the other thing is there was already a lot of uncertainty in the system. Okay. So for instance, there was a New York Times article that unfortunately really didn't help the framing well. The article made it sound like the Overwatch League is chipping in $1 million per team in order for them to, on top of everything, in order to build a franchise. And $1 million is, by the way, not enough. If you think about the budget tier list, there are teams that are over $1 million in salary. Even the lower ranked teams, that are at 350K, they still have to pay the general manager, they still have to pay the coaches, they still might have to pay housing, even though that's no longer part of the requirements. So, and then, all the costs, the visa costs and everything, that easily balloons up to that, right? What it actually was, to the best of my knowledge, is actually just a rev share, right? Propped up a little bit, right? And that was for 2022. This is not what is promised for 2023. I don't know what the number is for 2023, right? I don't know if other people know what the number is for 2023.
So what you're saying is that it isn't necessarily a stipend from the league. It's just kind of a reframing of the revenue share.
Stipends, I think, might have probably gone out somewhere. Once again, I don't want to confirm anything. If I ever get that on, enough evidence, I probably would report on it. But to the best of my understanding, this was just a rev share that went out. It's also reasonable to assume that, right? If you follow the announcements, do the math a little bit, give or take, it's not just the broadcasting deal. It's also probably sponsorships that the league got, or that the league could have gotten had the entire fallout not happened, right?
Sure, of course.
So that's my speculation in terms of how this number gets stacked up, right? So so the whole thing with the CDL now is that when they are moving to Twitch, and there hasn't been a new deal announced there, right? We had usually when we got the deal with Twitch and it was decided that Overwatch League was going to stream there, huge press release, X million amount, I forget what it was. The deal is estimated to be in the, it's not just pure cash, but it's other stuff as well. Especially the YouTube deal was like this, right?
Correct.
So then if you break it down, what every franchise would be getting, even though it's very, very hard for the recent YouTube deal, because there's, of course, server hosting costs in...
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of extra...
Right? It's practically impossible to really have an accurate estimation, but you gotta assume that this is the lion's share of the revenue, right? So, or, bottom line. Once again, managers were told, 2 minutes before the tweet, or maybe in the same time, that they couldn't sign them. And the real hurt that is felt is the players that are currently not contracted, that have handshake agreements with those teams, especially those that don't have savings, because they cannot sign a contract by which they would start generating a salary, right? And there's some caveats here. That's another bombshell that dropped this year, by the way, is that you can, like, the start payment date that has to be maintained is like 7 days before league start or something. Okay.
Sure.
So practically speaking, you only have to pay even your starters for the entire duration of the Overwatch League, which effectively is like 7 or 8 months. Okay. And the end date, we don't even know that yet.
Right.
When the end date is, and we don't know what the start date is. And therefore, not only do those players haven't had an ability to sign yet, some of the players, where the org will go like max savings, and some will, I don't know how many, I heard it of some, not many, like a lot of them will, of course, start with annualized rates. To quickly explain that, if I earn, 50K, then I divide 50 by 12. That's what I get per month. And then if I only work for 11 months, because my contract only starts, like in December,
right?
Now I lose a month of salary, right? Where my earning is limited, and there's really no other way for Overwatch League players to do. So, but here's the heinous thing, okay? Get this, Joe. By making it possible that there's 7 days only before league start, how do you practice? If that's if you're only getting paid 7 days before,
you're praying on a lot of goodwill. I'll tell you that.
You're ask. I think it's not legal to ask your team to work for you in that time.
Oh,
but competitors, the people that made it there, will.
Yeah,
unpaid.
Yeah, well, of course they have. Yeah.
So
this is you're monetizing passion at this point.
We're at a point where there will be competitors in the Overwatch League that will effectively have practice the entire 12 months. They're already starting, of course. Like if there's a handshake agreement, and some of, I will say, the teams that know that they will stick together already are probably not the teams that are expected to only be paid late.
Sure, of course.
Right? I will also say there's a possibility that some of these orgs say, okay, you're kind of hard done by. We'll up your initial offer so as to recuperate the losses of the month. I think goodwill was at least there in past years. I hope there's still goodwill here for those players.
Course, yeah.
Because these teams were ready to make those expenses, right? Of course, they have no insurances like this will come together. But yeah, it's a rough situation for everyone involved, but specifically for players that don't have anything to fall back on, that aren't going to sign these fat contracts. And if you look at the amount of hours, if I'm a team or a player that knows that I have a handshake agreement to be signed, but my salary only starts 7 days before league start or whatever it is, maybe it's less, maybe it's more, then I am going to start practicing, and then I will only effectively make these 54,700 something divided by the amount of months, times the amount of months divided by 12, which comes down to around 31, 34K, depending on how much time that is. Okay. For those 8 months. Now, if you calculate that to the 12 months, we're now in minimum wage range. Especially, it's actually under. If we're being honest, it's under because it's not a 40-hour job. Okay. Oh. So, of course, that there is absolutely like a market correction that has to happen. There's a lot of inflated salaries that just aren't sustainable anymore. And that's why you see a lot of this market movements, right? I still heard of contracts that are over 200K. That's fine. Some orgs still pay that. That's size,
that's cool.
Right?
Great.
There are definitely some orgs that are still willing to shell out. But yes, there will be absolutely a difference where the top earners in the league will be making, 250,000.
Sure.
And the lowest earners that still play the entire season will sit there with 31K. And yes, there's a wide skill difference. And yes, you might say, well, that's the same in professional sport. LeBron makes like 80, and then the other guys do like 8. That's fair. Life is very different at 8 million than it is on 30K. Can we agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say quite different for,
So
it's not necessarily apples to oranges, but I get the energy. But there's a lot of moving parts there that aren't necessarily there for these players. You have an agency behind you in the Players Association, I believe, for the NBA is quite active.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I turn to the news, I hear about lockouts, this, that, the other thing. I'm not saying you're not going to hear me get up on a soapbox, banging the drum of, collective bargaining and getting, organizing your union, even though I think they should. We've seen that. We've heard about that. It doesn't, it's easier said than done, let's say.
Yeah. One thing I want to hit you. One thing I want to highlight real quick, because people will say, well, how's this, how is Yiska coming to these things? I think if you read just Arcow, I didn't say anything that was going on behind the scenes. This is all out in the open. I'm doing this, for the ownership level viewers that we do have. I didn't leak anything here. I just smartly picked the correct information as far as I'm aware, in terms of what was put out there by other parties. I definitely was on some of those things to report on them. They just flew out, and right.
So Yiska, we're gonna play a fun little game. It's called Yes No, and I cannot comment.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna throw you a bunch of questions and about this, and you're gonna either say yes, no, or I can't comment.
Right.
Okay. So, in your opinion, now that the free agency's window has been delayed from December 2nd to December 23rd, do you think that the Overwatch League 2023 season will be delayed?
Yes.
The start of the season.
It's impossible to know by how much, right? So if we're looking at the current, we will be pushing the FA window, blah, 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 and the 5 minimum deadline to the 13th of March. This is the 5-player deadline. This is not the 6-player deadline.
That's just the initial deadline.
We do not know the 6-player deadline. Keep in mind that our best information that we had was that we're starting somewhere in March. Now, the 6-player deadline, Eric, can you quickly look up how much time usually is between the 5th and the 6th? I think this time around it's probably not going to be a great precedent, because I think prior to this there were 2 months difference. I don't think that's happening. I don't think this necessarily has to imply a 2-month delay, even though it could. I'm not sure.
But
and here I have no knowledge, right? Like, this is not, Yiska is leaking, this is, I have no idea what's going on.
Informed guess.
And I'm not sure if anyone knows what's going on.
Right? I don't know. Doesn't sound like the league kind of knows what's going on just yet. So.
They might, but yeah. So yeah, I think this already implies a little bit of a later start.
Okay.
And it's unfortunate because it sounded like we wanted to time it with the new hero in season 4.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
And Eric says generally there has been a difference between the 5-player minimum and the 6-player minimum of 2 months.
Around 2 months. Yeah.
Let's hope that isn't the implication here, and we're starting once again in May.
Right.
That would be rough.
That would be.
But then again, it would also give some much needed breathing room to figure out some ways to, monetize or fix the Chinese situation.
Sure.
Also, I think there's a solid chance. I think prediction markets currently have it like around 80 to 85% that the Microsoft deal closes until June 2023. So then, maybe by the time that happens, we're already like, or the Blizzard's already fused with Microsoft there, and that changes a little bit. I'm not sure if it would even change things for the good or for the better. There's an impossible amount of factors here.
Sure.
What I will say is the following, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw a lot of like bad reception, especially like around the personnel of Sean Miller. I feel like I can tell you less about the performance of Sean Miller than I can tell you about the performance of Moon, right? Like in terms of like what he contributes to the team.
What actually
I have no idea what's going on in that office. What I will say is, just from the outside looking in, bro, he took over an office during a global pandemic, and then like, of course, that whole seat was still on fire with the whole Blizzard stuff, the PR nightmare, and also, of course, like having to change like management and whatnot. And then now this China thing is on his plate as well. This is like I'm sorry, this is an absolute shit sandwich that not a lot of people, like it's impossible to say what his performance is like, because this is an impossible situation, right? It's like if you think you have a solution in place, suddenly like this league is given another curveball. Now, of course, some aspects here in the fundamental planning, once again, we're still hurting from the decisions made in season 1. That's also 100%. To be taken into consideration. This is not to absolve Sean Miller of all responsibilities, of course. I think.
But how the fuck? Yeah, we don't have any idea.
I personally think
like you do.
I personally think it would be a good idea to keep your teams more in the loop, and if it leaks, it leaks. That's not a problem.
Sure.
I think you should probably take yourself some more time which is realistic. I think like delaying the free agency when you're immediately to that point would have probably been salient, and would have given players some breathing room as well, or some time to consider. So of course, maybe you also do the shorter free agency increments because you don't want to make it too opportune for players to switch to other games. Of course, that's always a fear at this point as well.
Sure.
So like, but in my mind, I wish the communication was more there. I don't think necessarily leaks impact the situation by much or move the needle by much. It is a really hard situation. I tell you, everyone know already. Like everyone that works this has a pretty good idea what's going on or what's going wrong, right? I think like there's nothing really anything too uncertain about the details, and if it was to come, some stuff will of course eventually hit some reports, but I mean, at the same time, like there is still real people working this. A dwindling amount of players, of course, but
of course, yeah,
they have still like a lot of young professionals, highly talented ones, their lives at stake. And if you don't know if you can have a solution by that time, then you probably should give them all the time they need in order to, all the certainty you can reasonably give in order to for them to make good decisions about their future. And if that means they're leaving Overwatch, then they're leaving Overwatch.
Yeah, right. There's an entire new generation of talent that is waiting to, bridge that gap. And if that's the case, then so be it, right? Like that's the one thing that I think we can say with pretty much certainty within Overwatch as an esport, is that our rookie classes are usually pretty good. Genuinely solid talents coming in. You talk about last year, you talk about the year before, really, really talented players funneling upwards. I think that is one thing that we can say with certainty that Overwatch has. Now, in the spirit of keeping with a rapid fire segment, I'm going to ask you to speed it up a little bit. Let me throw this at you. If we're going to say that maybe the league is delayed, you talked about annualized contracts. Do you think this debacle kind of changes the average contract structure moving forward into maybe 2024, or maybe even a general contract rewrite, trying to compensate in the interim, or maybe making a change there in terms of annualized salaries? Is that something that you feel strongly about or could change?
It's there. You could theoretically, what you could do, for instance, is let's say you have a total amount that you are expected to pay the player if you would have signed them end of November.
Sure.
And then you maintain that amount and just put it onto the new start date. It's still the same amount that the player would have earned. They just are with you for one less month.
Right. So you're saying just creating like a way to
what you can't then do, or I guess you could, but what you can't then or shouldn't then do,
right,
is to have the option be that same amount, right? Because then the orc is eating this shit sandwich alone. You get it? Like, okay, my current rate is 100k, so I'm not getting or 120k. I'm not getting my 10k for December. So I still will earn 120k with X organization in the 11 month, right? But my contract is then not going to be increased to the amount of, that my salary had to be raised in order for the annualized amount to stay 120k. So I don't earn more than I was supposed to once my option was picked up. Sorry, like this is... I also am mildly disappointed with myself that I can't come up with the additional. Of course, it would have to be when I'll think about it. But
okay,
yeah, no. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, I think the general gist of it being that like you can create like a creative solution to the contract to try to compensate the players based on the situation.
Yes.
But do you think that this creates a fire under the league to actually instill meaningful long-term change in terms of how the contracts are structured? Yes or no?
I mean, if anything, they meaningfully change contracts to the detriment of players, and they have for every season.
Sure,
right?
It's a slow degradation.
Keep in mind, like these 30k also don't have to include housing.
Agreed.
Housing is no longer a requirement. Food is no longer a requirement. Right.
Right.
So,
so you would say no.
No.
I'm hearing a no.
Yeah, and really the only thing that has happened that I can remember that was positive for players is getting rid of rolling inflation? 30 days.
No, that's
and the inflation, even though like the buying power,
that feels like the most like bare minimum. That's like thanking your partner for listening to you when you have a bad day. It's like, oh my god, thank you for being there for me. It's
just the same. Yeah, what? It's just the same.
Okay. Gotcha.
So really, we've only been taken away from player rights, and
correct
to a degree, they should, because none of those salaries were sustainable, and I'd argue they never were.
That's their fault though. Like that's just dumb money.
Sure.
Right. I don't know if I want to start policing dumb money, but I digress. I hate you with a couple more. Is there a world where deals that were handshook for today are off the table for the 23rd?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Like imagine a situation where once again, like an orc, like the Hangzhou Spark, feel confident to spend the same amount that they've always done since going into the Overwatch League. This instantly changes the market. Like last season, you could feel a real shockwave go through the, no pun intended, also wasn't shockwave,
He's leaking.
Like a couple of key signings just ruined the market. Like,
sure,
it just made everything go bonkers. Like, not only were like some folks upset that someone would pay so much for certain free agents, it also like increased expectations what everyone else had to pay, right? So this is also, by the way, this is a thing that always happens each season. It's like, we are going to only eat ramen and pay min, right? And then like we find a cozy bridge and that's where we play. And then the closer the season comes, and it's like the GM's like, well, we're going to really suck. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to deal with the Twitter headache. Okay, here, have some more, right? And then, housing is added or whatever, right? Like this raising of budgets from the hardcore, like, idealistic point of like, okay, this is exactly how much we can afford. Some teams don't waiver, of course, but
sure,
a lot of them do.
Gotcha. And last but not least, in this not so rapid fire round of questioning,
the thing is, look, saying yes, no to these is like really reckless. Like, it's like
no, I agree. It's definitely not the correct format, and I think you're doing it well. So I'm mostly teasing. Last one. Do you still think the Atlanta Reign, as we move forward, is a top 5 team in the world, knowing what we know now?
Hell yes.
Okay, obviously.
Okay. Let me pull the curtain on the mind of Joe, because we've had this discussion behind the scenes of like, the AT roster going to Defined has been leaked and everything, and Joe, out of a fever ayahuasca 6th level of transcendence stream, has conceived that the Toronto Defiant will finish higher than the Atlanta Reign. Now, keep in mind, we also don't know exactly who will be on Toronto. Fair. We don't know exactly who will be on Atlanta yet, right?
Sure.
What you can assume, though, is that Atlanta will pick up one banger main support, and maybe another flex support, and then maybe another flex CPS, and then I think that's probably
you understand that that's like a whole like half another team, yeah.
Right, but like that's the expectation, right? Like,
right, yes.
They'll get some, and there are a bunch of S tier main supports, in my opinion. Dude, you have Chio, and by the way, it's not just main supports that they might be looking at, because the paradigm of like, what's the main support, blah blah blah. Maybe you just go to flex supports. That works apparently. That dude like got to 2nd place and like into the grand finals. It was 1 map away from winning it all again on a role he hasn't played and could double flex, Violet. So okay, we have a bunch of S tier flex supports like Shu, like Fielder still on the market. We have Vindame. We have
a lot of good talent.
Chio. We have Lee J gone. We have Chorong. Like, all these guys are just like out there in the ether and could be picked up. And if you're a team that's still willing to offer low six-figure contracts, then you're probably going to find someone that's very good, right?
Probably.
Joe is here. Where's the power of friendship? They've been friends for so long. And because they're friends and because they watch the Care Bears together, their light rays and love rays will persist against the evil super teams that just want to win with money. Fuck no. Lip is going to curb stomp your dreams. Fuck friendship. Fuck all of that shit. Friendship doesn't trump aim.
I see. Can I get a score check on the South Korean World Cup game? Just real fast.
What do you mean?
Did they beat? Who did South Korea beat today? I feel like there was a big name that...
They beat Portugal, a team that didn't need to win. They were sandbagging. You should know this by now. We had this since season 1.
Very good. Okay. So just to clarify my point, it's never been about friendship. It's really never been about Care Bears and sun rays.
It's been synergy, kumbaya. Like
it's partially synergy, that's for sure. It's also logistics, right? So as the team stands now for the Atlanta Reign, as of December 2nd, we have Gator as head coach, Wizard Young joining the team as an assistant coach.
Pick up as well. I don't know what he was smoking.
Okay. I like that energy. We have Hawk.
I'm also lying.
We have Vigilante.
I'm just lying for the sake of my argument.
We have Hawk, we have Vigilante, we have Stalker and Lip. You're not going to hear me shade or throw shade on the individual talents of this team, right? That's not going to happen. But far too often in esports do we see a team of very, very talented individual players not necessarily lead up to being an incredible team per se, right? And this, from the initial roster building, feels like a good early diagnosis for a team, especially when, I'm gonna say it, like
he's going to say it.
There's a lot of Koreans on this team.
Yeah,
I don't know what Hawk's doing here.
Be like a top 5 tank in the world.
Yeah. Why not just get Smurf? Why not just get a Korean main tank?
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, that would make that team probably easier to manage and probably better if you could literally get Smurf or someone or... Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think those are the upgrades.
And I'm not saying Hawk is bad. What I'm saying is that this game for the last 6 years has been incredibly difficult to manage just for single language rosters, let alone a team that's, at least on the outset, looking very Korean leaning. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, that's, your prerogative to do that. What I really am not necessarily finding confidence in is trying to thrust them into this world-class status when we don't have any other information about most teams.
Do you just conjure up other STL talents that get curb stomped by Lip?
What I'm saying is I can't necessarily judge anything just yet. I'm not gonna just as of right now, this is the only team
judges your favorite hitscan player every time he plays. Dude,
you're right.
Gator, as his first act as a main coach, went, I am going to release Kai and upgrade. That's a crazy ass sentence. That's a new entire syntax that we didn't know existed in the Overwatch League before. Motherfucker upgraded from Kai, and it's fucking Lip. Like,
yeah.
And then I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek as well, behind the scenes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk to teams, everyone is convinced Stalker is the truth. Like, if you give, if a genie shows up and goes, you have two choices, either Stalker or Prophet. 19 teams take Stalker at this point. No, I'm lying. Once again, to make my arguments have a little bit more weight. I really heard this from six people.
Sure.
Which is very close to 90.
Yeah, an incredibly close number. I would say the most close. That said, yes, I've been very big on Stalker since the Gauntlet performance. I think he's only grown in stocks for me. I think Lip is fantastic, but let's not forget, Lip was fantastic last year. It wasn't going to deadlift a team throughout the playoffs.
He fucking tried, though.
Nobody's saying he didn't try. I'm not saying he even had a bad season. What I'm saying is I don't know what Hawk and Lip do together. I don't know.
Magic. Dude, you gotta be gunba pilled more. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. You could color me an idiot. I don't know. I think my stance has been pretty clear since we've had debates on the show. You can go back hundreds of episodes and you'll always hear me argue against the creation of mixed rosters. They're a headache logistically. There are culture clashes. The average performance of your team only goes down unless you are very careful in which players you pick, from my understanding. And I don't know that teams like have the resources to like spend the time to really figure out who is a right fit and who is not. I don't know that picking just for talent is always the best route. I'm happy. Here's a couple things that I am thankful for. Talking about the holiday season, I'm thankful that Atlanta is spending the money. I'm thankful that we'll get an answer to this question because this seems like a very exciting team. It's a team that I want to see play. But am I going to stick my neck out there as of today and say this is a world-class team? They should be shooting for a title when they've got 4 players and Hawk? And that's not shade at Hawk, but there's somebody sticking out here, and it's looking like it's him, right? I said the same thing about Boston the year before, where I'm like, hey, they could probably just play a Korean team, and lo and behold, they played a Korean team sometimes, right?
Like and that sucked, and they were better when Punk played.
Right. That's true. So why not just play Punk and create a team with Punk in mind? That's what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, and then you like
why get into this? Why get into that trouble beforehand? Is what my entire argument.
The thing is, what I agree with you is there's probably not a less opportune or less opportune role to have your one English speaking guy in than main tank. I think that's the worst that it could be, right? Like main support, whatever, beat, speed boost, that's done. Right, like as long as you can communicate that, I think like that guy can probably, even though he probably has to call him. Forget about me. Maybe it's the flex DPS actually. But yeah, tank is pretty. Like there's a lot of information that has to be communicated by the main tank in order to like what he sees, how engagements go, especially in dive. So yeah, I think that's a little suboptimal, but I also saw the shock. I mean, that's once again like a team that was very close to winning it all, had a pretty good season, and we heard from Kasoris, the main coach you put a lot of trust in with the AT roster, that you can find these, keywords in order to bring understanding. And if they can consistently do that, and also, like, it maybe sounded a little bit mean, but I genuinely think if you think about assistant coaches or what the Atlanta Reign needed, then Wizard Young easily is a top 3 choice there.
Yes, it is a great fit. I think it makes a lot of sense. Somebody who obviously is is I think fluent. I don't know if that's like the law to say, or like if there's like something you need to he's fluent. Like let's just say, call it what it is. And he's worked with Korean teams. He's worked with Western teams. There's probably there's not too many better fits here. Let's be completely honest.
Yes. Yeah.
So yes, I think that's a strong pickup. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it definitely increases my trust or confidence in this team. But these next few pickups for Atlanta they're gonna have to do something special, because I'm hearing things about Glads that I like. I'm hearing things elsewhere that I'm liking. I'm like, okay, Atlanta has a lot of weight to throw around here. They've got a 6'8" gaming warlord coming at you, throwing kids in lockers. I get it.
I'm not saying this team wouldn't likely be better if you put Hanbin or Smurf in that position, or someone. I think that's probably the truth. Someone, you could argue. I also don't want to slander Hawk too much, but once again,
this is not Hawk slander.
You're working against the language uphill battle. So
right.
But yeah,
there's cutting with the grain and there's cutting against the grain. A lot of teams, I don't know why, but they constantly want to cut against the grain.
Yeah.
Don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I do get it, because signing Stalker and Lip as your DPS duo is real sexy.
Yeah.
That's got me hot and bothered.
Vigilante? Ooh, baby.
I get it. But, November's past, boys. Like, come on now. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. That's all I'm saying, right?
Dude, if they get a banger main support in there, or even like, dude, okay, Joe, this is I'm pulling you from the brink. You're at the cliff. You're looking down at the void. Everyone, all the crouchers are behind you going, don't do it, Joe. Don't jump. Here's the thing. If this team gets someone like Shu.
Me when I'm jump pilled? Okay.
Like Shu, like
Why would they need Shu?
Like Vindame? Like
Vindame, sure. I could see.
Geo Vindame. I'm missing. Maybe even Charong, even though that didn't look likely.
Sure.
Yeah, let's say they get Vindame or they get Geo.
Sure.
Does that change, or are you still jumping on the?
I'm jumping.
AT train, and I ripped out my.
I don't even know. Okay, let's. I don't know if I want to use a verb, right? I think from everything that I weigh as strong in general esports, just across the board, I would probably put more of my confidence in, whatever this AT core looks like. If they're actually going as a package deal, I would say that to me is a more consistent team in the long run than Atlanta Reign.
That's crazy, specifically because you saw half of them already on the team this year on the Atlanta Reign, and it wasn't that good.
We saw 2 of them.
3. OG, Ultraviolet, Speedily.
Are we really going to count Speed?
I mean, if you think he's going to like increase his performance manifold, then
I would probably have to say that he's going to get more starting time, or at least like get a fair shake. Sure. When you have somebody sitting on the bench they can't play, it's got to be pretty difficult to try to integrate him into scrims, right?
Look, I felt like as soon as that like blue and green graphic popped up and it said Aspire, I knew my take was correct. I was like, baby, Aspire not going through that team? Woo! I feel good about my take.
Sure. I'll say this. I think a lot of people are still shock-pilled, rightfully so. Right. I think what Shock have done since season 1 has been very, very impressive. Funnily enough, a lot of that groundwork laid by Sephi, who is now, I believe, remote analyst, whatever that means. Still, working with the team in a lesser degree than he used to. But again, still, this is his pet project, let's say. I trust that this will be a good team. But I do not know how much I want to throw around like great title, all of these great and fun adjectives to teams this early on, when we really don't know what other teams look like. Is it an exciting team? 100%. I'm very excited to see this team play. But I don't know. I really would like to see this team balance out a little bit.
Low key, dude. There's not that many more rosters that can go pound for pound that could be built other than Shock.
You don't think Glads could? I don't have too many players signed just yet.
Yeah, but like the moves that you hear like Glads entertaining, I don't think it gets there, dude.
We will have to see. We will certainly have to see. Again, Glads, as it stands now, Hawk, Vigilante, Stalker, Lip. Leave in the comments below if I'm an idiot, or if you're with Yiska.
Joe, I'll give you a dark horse in the ability to go pound for pound. And that's a big what if. But Houston could also theoretically get there.
Houston could go pound for pound? Yeah. You're telling me Beasley Media is going pound for pound?
No, like if you look at what the current roster is and like the like upgrades that they, it's like, okay, they retain Pelican, they retain Merit.
But do we know that for sure, though?
No, but like, let's assume that. Then that's like a really solid core to build on. And of course, like having released Danteh kind of communicates that you're going full Korean, unless you're letting go of everyone for the big contract.
Goofy pilled. Yeah.
So if not, that could mean like maybe you're also shopping for that Danteh salary that you're now freed up. Maybe you're getting a banger main tank, right?
Could be.
Maybe you're getting one of the banger main supports, right? By the way, I feel like hot take, Joe. Hot take.
Hot takes incoming. Got a lot of them.
I feel like the trap card that you gotta really try to avoid this season is picking up Lee Jae-gon.
Oh, that's the trap card?
It's sexy. It sounds sexy. I think it's a trap. I think you shouldn't do it. I think you should do everything in order to get Vindame or Chio.
Sure. Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think Lee Jae-gon is one of those players, and this feels heretical saying, but I think Lee Jae-gon is one of those players that you probably have to build a team around, or with him in mind at the very least.
Yeah.
Right? That feels like an early piece to sign, first, and then you fill out the rest of the team around him, being the kind of backbone of the team. So, no pun intended. Moving on from Atlanta. Was once a restricted free agent, is now an unrestricted free agent in the GOAT in Profit. You brought him up earlier versus his contemporary or former contemporary and Stalker. Where's the GOAT going? What's up with Profit?
Okay, here's my Profit take. Yeah. I think it's true to say, pound for pound, in the position and in the heroes that Stalker is playing, those heroes are probably, other than Tracer, I'm struggling to say Genji. Not Genji. Stalker is an upgrade, but here's the big one. You're buying yourself tickets, bro. Tickets on tickets on tickets on all those metas that could be dropping, especially with the new heroes. That's a dude that can step in at every role and just perform at least A tier almost immediately on every hero that isn't called Echo. And
hey, he got better. He got better,
but it was probably the worst he's ever looked in his career.
Agreed.
Early on, Echo. So once again, and we're also not getting DPS during the next season, so that's kind of good. But yeah, I think this is picking up Profit is great for your team if you're a smaller roster and you're thinking, okay, I got 6 players or 7, probably want I want to double up on the supports, or maybe not, and maybe I want to double up on the tanks. But I feel like, let's say you're a 6-man roster, I think Profit being your, double up on the DPS, that's actually kind of good. Because now you have the flexibility to put him on flex support or on tank. And if you pair him with quality around him, that's still absolutely possible to be a really scary team. I will also tell you, I'm scared shitless where this guy's going. Because this is the key moment in history where you ruin a GOAT's destiny. This is the cliff, and the eagle is there. The GOAT is on the mountain, right? The eagle wants to throw the GOAT off the mountain. And the GOAT got to traverse the terrain and escape. Yeah. He needs to find that cliff, that high point, where you can team up with other good players and, be safe, have a good team. Doesn't need to win. Top 5 team in the world, top 3 team. Top performances consistently, once again being an MVP candidate. That's what you wish for Profit going forward, right? Yeah. And let's call a spade a spade. It's not all a Leaf story. It cannot always be a Leaf story where one guy hard carries a team.
Agreed.
You need a team built around you in order to be able to consider your legacy. And as the GOAT, and everyone that has an idea about sports will tell you, and as Profit has demonstrated as last year, that dude also has pull. Dude.
Yeah.
Playing with Profit, I just got done reading the proper stream summary. That kid was named himself after Profit. That guy is an idol. He hasn't dropped in level. Arguably, one of the best Profit times was stage 1 this year, where he absolutely pounded on Genji. And, he's not washed. He can attract players to your franchise. If you may. I would actually still give him a starting spot and then try to get, at least 1 or 2 S tier talents around him in some other role. And then you can cook. That's possible, I think. But I'm scared shitless that we're getting him on a team I don't know, one of the Chinese teams that suddenly get told, yeah, here's money, and then like he's getting architected, you know.
See, I was concerned that he was going out west.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
Right. But
I certainly wouldn't like that if I was like, if we're looking at like GOAT candidacy, if we're talking legacy, I don't know if that's something I want to like risk.
Look, like what I'd be intrigued, but I'd be scared if, for instance, a team like, by the way, 100% honest to God, hand on chest, this isn't a league. I'm just
say it.
I'm
just say the
like,
purple team. It's the Glads, right?
No,
we're all scared of the Glads coming in with a Boston.
It is Boston, and then like a constellation of like Decay there with Prophet, something like this.
In what? Okay. Help me. You want to talk about cooked audio listeners? You can't see this, but my hands are real cold, and this kid's giving me a headache. In what fucking universe do you think Prophet could go to Boston before he goes to either Glads or Philly?
I think they might not want him.
Okay.
Riddle
me this.
I kind of like the Philly take. That the Philly one is interesting, but it also would suck for Zest.
I don't care if I'm Zest, if I'm Comcast Jones.
It's actually
give a fuck.
I don't think you need the Zest backup. You don't need the Zest pickup. What should have happened is like you need like a really good, like a Happy, like a Merit. Those are the guys you got to get in on Philly. So MN3 has solid competition, and when you see MN3's on a hero, then you put MN3 in. If not, you need an A plus S minus backup that can slot in there. It's not like Prophet just takes over on Widow or whatever, right?
Sure.
You want Prof, and I don't think Zest is the player that you need a backup for. I think Zest is the truth already. This kid, like in his rookie year, was already really solid. I think next year is only going to get better.
I like that energy, right? What I foresee happening is the following, right?
Okay.
I think there are plenty of heroes that Prophet can play at a adequate level, right? MN3, much like I've said in numerous shows, is a role player. He is your third player. He is a hit scan specialist, if that. Does he have his moments where he absolutely takes over games and just looks like an absolute stud? 100%. Can we count on that? Absolutely not. I get really concerned about that DPS duo without a third when I start thinking about anything plus Tracer. Right?
Right.
Zest has a Tracer, sure. Everybody keeps telling me, oh, MN3 this, MN3 that. I'm like, guys, look.
Right.
If I want to win the league, if I want to spend my Comcast bucks, if I want to spend my funny Monopoly money on winning an absolute Overwatch League title, I want one of the best Tracer players to ever touch the goddamn game to be on my Tracer, right?
Yeah.
And then we have Zester and MN3, right? If we need a Genji, we've got a Genji. If we need a Soldier, an Ashe, God forbid, right? We have everything else around him. I don't think Tracer is going anywhere, like she hasn't forever. Very rarely does this character ever not see play, right? And you've got characters like Genji and Sombra, God forbid, an Echo comes in. You have all the flexibility in the world. I think that this complements that trio so nicely.
Yeah. I mean, it's you're not wrong. And in that, Carpe was actually kind of a good solution to this.
Carpe was a very lucky solution.
Yeah.
I think they got they were very blessed with how dominant Sojourn was after her change and how often we had an actual like hit scan, secondary.
You're right. Yeah.
Where they had they had some depth there, so they go, okay, do we want MN3 here? Do we want Carpe there? Like there's plenty of worlds where we get Tracer plus something that, Tracer Echo, Tracer Genji, Tracer Sombra, and Carpe doesn't see a lick of playtime.
Right.
right? Like, I think Philly were very blessed in that way.
Yeah.
I think you need, it's not necessarily building a backup for Zest. It's about completing this trio and really meta-proofing your team. I think it makes total sense. And you want to talk about like not moving so far, you've got the resources. It makes sense to me. I don't know.
It's also,
I think it's the good fit.
That's the question, because like last year, low key, other than Carpe, Philly was kind of budget. I'm not sure if they're shooting this year, if they're launching nukes into the market, trying to attract these. Like, there's of course always rumors who they shot at. The rumors are all like, okay, there's a change in expenditure. If those are true, it's another deal, right? But if Philly wants to shoot, I think once again this is one of those seasons where it's probably like, I feel like higher spending will at the end of the day be highly efficacious in terms of like I know you task probably someone in the org to do the calculation. How important is roster spending? You know, take the budget tier list, start calculating, ask around, what are these players making, blah, 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 win rate per map and whatever. And you find out like it's now less opportune than it ever was. This is going to change. We're once again, the inertia or the like entropy is once again setting in on this game called Overwatch 2. And yes, we're getting frequent heroes, and it's not going to settle as quickly as it did for Overwatch 2, even though for Overwatch 1, even though I will say the GOAT stuff definitely is basically like a new game. But what we saw towards the end of the Overwatch 1 era was everyone kind of knew what the comps were. Everyone knew what you had in your talent. The established veterans, like their efficacy was very high. Like you paid what you got most of the time. And then this season rolled around and rookies were super strong again, even though like towards the end of the season this ebbed off a little bit, and like the strength of rookies like definitely heavier, interestingly, at the start of the season, but still like the value of veterancy was greatly diminished over other years. This is coming back. Like now we once again filtered for not just veterans, but veterans that don't want to play anymore, that aren't suited for Overwatch 2. You know, like we saw Flatter talk about like not really feeling it anymore. Those guys are going to be gone, and then whatever is veterancy is going to pound for you. Like, there's no universe where a motivated Smurf is going to suck next year. There's no universe where a motivated Prophet will suck next year, right? So this, to me, seems like a season where you absolutely, especially if you already have an established, very good, high-potential core, we can absolutely buy a championship. Or high standings, I will say.
I agree. I there's really nothing more I can add there. I would 100% agree. You know, when we talk about, you know, this being the biggest budget year in recent memory, any penny that you can scrounge up from the old couch is probably going to be, you know, a performance booster.
Budget year, you see it said biggest budget year in the sense like a lot of teams are going budget, not everyone has a big budget. Just to
yeah. Like
just for the viewers to not confuse, you know.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah. Like when Yiska's talking about like the you know, this could be the biggest discrepancy between like top and like low spending teams. Like that's what I'm playing within. And if you can go ahead.
This is almost certainly going to be the least average amount spending and lowest amount of players signed this year. So the total roster expenditure is going to be the lowest next year, I'm pretty sure.
On average.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Unless something wildly changes. Like, I don't know, like...
Let's hope it does.
Like, I don't know. Maybe we find some crypto billionaire that wants to pay us $100 million.
Great, yeah, let's go get an FTX involved. That's what we want.
I'm desperate
That said, hey, look, I get it. Prophet's out there. I hope he finds a home. Look, if Pre's out there and he's got Decay and like, hey, you want to partner up with Prophet? I'd like to see Prophet in the blue and gold. That would be an absolute brain bender, but make it happen, I guess. I don't know. I figured maybe
that's a Apex Season 4 callback.
Little bit. but yeah, Prophet's out there. I hope he find. I think he's definitely gonna find a home if he wants to find a home.
Right.
And that's you want to talk about hot free agents? Prophet's on the market. We'll have to wait and see. December 23rd is when we'll probably get that news.
Probably later. Probably
sure. Right. Let's bank on later. Yeah. Let's bank on that having at needing some time to roll out.
At least announcements, of course, like
social media, this, that, the other thing.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Another team that's been doing some moves that I think is going to be fun to speculate on. A friend of the show, Broy in Vancouver, have resigned, not resigned, but have has re-upped his contract. Surprising, I think nobody. But has also found a head coach in Askoft, formerly of the Boston Uprising. I believe they worked together last year, and I think the year before. And they've also re-signed Aspire, somebody who I think the community has rightly pointed out is probably Vancouver's best piece, but like subtly good, like very, very talented. Coming off a 2021 performance in Toronto where, the joke was that he didn't really speak too much with his teammates and just kind of played Tracer and pounded, and coming into Vancouver and, looking fantastic. So
he's
this Vancouver
good.
team.
I
think he's nuts. Yeah.
I kind of want to see him on like a really good roster to see like how high
you can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Like no cap. Like I'm not sure if it's stupid to. Yeah. I mean, in terms of flexibility.
I like where this is going.
Why can he not be Kevster?
Well, okay. Let's slow down. I like the energy. Kev is a hyperflex.
Sure.
I don't know if Aspire has projectile chops.
Sure.
What I do know is that he differentiates himself outside of the gadget third man. He's not a hit scan specialist. So much. Okay, that's not necessarily fair to say because Tracer technically is a hit scan, but he's got a Tracer along with all the rest of the hit scan options, right? And he's very good at both of them. And
which
I think
is kind of interesting, right? Like
yes, it is a great package to have. That's a fantastic thing to have as a core of your team.
Yeah,
because then you don't run into the same issue that something like a Philly has, where like you need an MN3 to be able to do other things. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if he can. Right. Same thing with Carpe previous years, Happy in previous years, maybe even this year, right? Where you need your hit scan to do more than just like click heads. You need them to be able to play Tracer. Can you have like some projectile in there? Can you at least like find a creative solution? A lot of these hit scan specialists, these third man role players are just Widow, Sojourn, Ashe. That's it. Don't ask like anything else is just not necessarily up to the task. It doesn't necessarily hold the same kind of caliber as other heroes. Aspire doesn't fit that bill. Actually has some depth to him. Has a really cool package. So I think that this is I think people would be very surprised if you actually look at some of his stats. When Stats Lab came out, I pulled up some of his, not specifically looking for him, just looking at outliers. And funnily enough, he's an outlier. I think it was for Sojourn. I think it was. Really, 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 really impressive. So
yeah,
could there be a start here? We talk about following the Ducks. This is a former Boston GM, former Boston assistant coach turned head coach. I've got a couple names on the list that probably, I don't know, feel like shoo-ins to go to Vancouver. You want to take the crack at this?
I mean, yeah, the obvious ones, I think, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if they leaked, so I'm not going to say it. But yeah, there are some elephants in the room, right?
I would say so, yeah.
I think there also were some gems in there that probably should make Aspire happy enough. You just got to really follow up.
Yeah.
You got to, like, definitely like a pairing of DPS. You got to give him someone to bounce off. Maybe even someone to apply pressure there. And then, yeah, you definitely need to look at the support line and like figure out something there. And I don't know what the budget situation is for them.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll see. It's going to be interesting what they're cooking, but once again, like, I think this could be a mid-tier team next year.
Mid-tier in the sense of like at least remotely competitive.
Could be
like not an absolute bye week situation.
Yeah, at the higher end, like,
Are we talking like London, 6th, 7th? Okay,
6th,
okay,
something like this in NA.
okay.
And then, I mean, yeah, I think if those guys that I'm thinking of are going there, they're never going to be the worst team in the league next year.
Definitely not.
Probably also not second or third. So
probably not. But
yeah, that's. I also don't think that they have the ability to strike any higher, unfortunately.
I'd probably give them a couple metas, depending on like what this team files out to be. Again, like, I know nothing about this team. We'll have to have Baroy or Askoff on the show. I've reached out to the both of them. We'll see. But if I had to guess, if you're a betting man and you're telling me that 2 former Boston Uprising coaches are coming to a team and they don't bring on somebody, I think you can slap me in the face and I'll eat a shoe, right? Like, there's probably somebody from this 2022 roster that's probably coming along, if not a couple of them. And that already, I feel like, is a vote of confidence, right? Mm-hmm. On top of whatever talent that we see come through.
The question is, should it be, right? I think there's
should it be? What do you mean, should it be?
I think there's a valid concern. Okay, let me throw you at this. Let me play devil's advocate here, because we're in a position where we, of course, like, we've known Baroy for a long time.
Agreed, yeah.
I'm going to force you out of your comfort zone here, Joe.
Okay.
Baroy went from Toronto Defiance Season 2 to Boston Uprising.
Yeah.
And none of those teams ever even challenged the top half.
Agreed.
And if you look at his history, just like based on evidence, without context, if you're a fan, it doesn't look that good. Why?
I think that's...
And then now... that guy is apparently also bringing in people from the team that wasn't really that good. So from the outside, the fan, and I'm basically quoting a Reddit comment here.
Yeah, I know you are.
Why is that not the right way in your mind to look at that? Or is it?
I think it comes down to where you're placing a lot of power, right? I think you can be a coach and not have any say in your roster building, right? Especially if you're an assistant coach. Maybe even if maybe, God forbid, let's say you're a head coach and you have players that are just on contract. Now I have to build with them in mind, and let's be honest, I don't particularly like them, right? I don't know that anybody... but I think the inner workings of the Overwatch League knows who's actually making decisions and who isn't. And I'm certainly not going to trust that Reddit knows, right? I don't suspect, however, that Baroy in a GM position does not have full control of this team, right? Or at least is in a much better position to make decisions and to consult and to perhaps even guide the roster building of this team. To go a step further, if you're going to then bring along somebody from a team that looked at least like they had a good head on their shoulders when it came to like stepping into a position, somebody that I think he probably has, adequate and candid information on, with him kind of stepping up into that position. I'll trying to remove as much bias as possible, because of course I am biased. I think you have to check that at the door and say, look, I've known Baroy for God knows how many years. I've spoken to him about, his teams, his players, what have you. I think he understands what goes into making a good team. And I would trust that, given full power, full roster construction, ability at his fingertips, that he would probably come up with a competitive team with the resources that he was given, right? I think to underline that comment specifically, I don't know that anybody knows who's really making decisions. And just because there's a coach moniker attached to your name doesn't mean that you have a ton of say so. I don't know that he did. I'm not saying he did. But with the teams that he's been on, I think there's a lot of room to say, I don't know how much room you've really been given, especially if there happens to be any kind of extracurricular, goings-ons where, is he there full time? I don't know. Hard to say. He's got family in Vancouver now. And funnily enough, he's the GM of Vancouver now. So I don't take that too lightly. I think enough information is out there to probably say the otherwise. I like the energy though. I think that's like a fair enough criticism, but I don't know that I would levy that just yet. I think if you are skeptical, that's fair to be skeptical. But I think, this would be the year to kind of, litmus test that skeptical, that questioning mind to say, okay, well, if you haven't had full roster power and now you've been given it, what kind of roster are you going to give me?
Yeah. Yeah. What I want from Baroy is like intelligent.
Well, I don't want another Chica dance, but that's just me.
Intelligent, like roster assembling. But also, I kind of want to see him try once again to find the diamond in the rough, if that makes sense. Yeah, you can bring in some veterans and whatnot, but it would be interesting to see like the scouting chops applied and see if you can, elevate another talent into, relevance.
Here's a fun anecdote for anybody who hasn't been with us for God knows how long. Everybody likes Shu, right? Everybody loves Shu now. Everybody loves talking about how good Shu is. Anybody remember Toronto Esports Shu? Anybody remember Flashlex Shu? Because you know who does? Roy. Wasn't on my radar. I watched all Apex from season 1 onwards, right? Even going into the what was it called? Not the Super Week, but the it was like contenders for Apex. I can't even remember what it was called.
Right.
Famously, I wrote that Prophet wasn't actually all that anything to be impressed about. So there's that. So he's the one to kind of really put Shu on like a lot of people's like radars, right? He had this performance metric out there back on Winston's lab, and there was nobody really all that close to Shu. Like he was amongst the names of legend at that time. The Rio J Hongs, I probably would be considered Jonak at some point, going into season 1. Like Shu was an absolute powerhouse, and he was the one to kind of spot him early. So if you're talking about, scouting chops, I don't know that there's too many other people out there that I would trust to do it better than Roy. So I would feel pretty confident that he's got an eye on some people that, probably don't have the same pull as others, let's say. So
sure.
Yeah, Vancouver looks, I don't know. I'm excited to see Vancouver. Sure. I think I have some fantasy rosters in mind that this team looks pretty good. So we'll see. Last things on Vancouver for you. Who's like the ideal like DPS lineup in your mind? Let me throw that at you for Aspire. Who would you like to see him? Like ideal situation, and not like completely out of the woodwork. Like Glads isn't giving up Kebster. Let's start there.
No, but like if they could have like someone like Quartz.
Okay.
Yeah, once again, like if you can find someone that I don't know about, maybe you can attract someone. Dare I say like Top Dragon?
Okay.
I think could you and maybe someone like RuPaul Majed, something like this. Someone or equally like interesting in terms of like, yeah, I don't know, like, and then that's probably smack dab mid team.
Sure.
Yeah, something like this, right?
Okay.
But yeah, it's hard, right? Like I think most of their solutions come from contenders, which I'm not too too informed on at the moment, which I'm going to
Well,
try
we're
to
gonna
rectify.
get informed.
Yeah,
We about to get informed. Don't even worry about that. Stay tuned.
but yeah, like it's also because Aspire has such a weird champion pool. It's also hard to find like the complementary DPS player there. So we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Another news. I don't even know exactly how to tackle this. Dante's not on Houston anymore, and I don't know how to feel about that.
It's a shit season to be a franchise player, isn't it, Joe?
It certainly is. It certainly is. You know, going back to what is that? I think it was in season 1, right? When Houston and Shock traded Smurf for Danteh. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, I think so.
A trade that I think a lot of people who knew some things were both like, you know, excited for, but also like, bro, like Dante's been like good for you. Like, I get like you've got, you know, a player waiting in the wings, but Danteh kind of hitting, right? And he hit for Houston for the next, you know, God knows how long, right? Hard to really kind of count out Smurf, especially at this point. But I think Danteh has been an absolute stud when it comes to the game of Overwatch, and if anything, is only aged well, right? Talk about a season where he's only played Doomfist and then learned Diva and all these other like tank heroes, and really kind of been a leader for his team, been a franchise player for this team. In any other circumstance, I would say this is an absolute idiot mistake from the Houston management, but I think I get it when it comes to the financials at this point, right? It's pretty tough to keep on somebody that deserves to be paid, you know, some serious cash. So I get it, but doesn't mean that it doesn't suck. So I certainly hope that Danteh finds a home, because I think he deserves it after last season for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think like he was probably on a pretty high salary.
Have to assume, yeah.
And all those contracts, bar like the absolute tippy top, are just going. They're just gone.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
It's there's no way around it, right?
Yep.
I think it's a shame because like just think about, dude, the franchise players that practically died or like left the org profit.
Sure. Yeah.
Like Danteh, Carpe. I could argue, is Shu one? Maybe. You could say like we don't know if Sparkle is coming back, if Hanbin is coming back.
Sure, a lot of those Dallas guys.
Theoretically speaking, Choice one is LFT.
True. Maybe.
Do we have franchise players? Let me ask that.
At this point, yeah, no, I think we have to kind of, you know, wipe the slate clean when it comes to Overwatch 2. I think it's probably best that we
Violet is the last one, right?
Yeah, I would say Violet's probably, you know, one of the only remaining franchise
maybe
players
Kev,
out there.
Right?
Even then, it's like 2 years, 3 years, maybe max. It's like, is that franchise? You know, I can say that that's your best player. I can say that that's who your franchise player should be. But I think, at least in my mind, your franchise player is somebody who's been there for the longest and is like, is your team identity, right?
Yeah.
And I think that like Kev probably will grow into that and likely checks a lot of those boxes, but just like isn't there long enough, right? Like, is it who's been there longer, Funny Astro or him? Am I like dumb for saying that?
Wait, Funny Astro, where?
At Glads.
At Glads.
Okay, Kev's been there since 2020.
Yeah.
So that would be
Cool.
a dumb. Maybe that's fair to say then. I think Kev going into his 3rd year, it's probably safe to say that he's probably the face of the Gladiators.
Yeah, for sure.
No pun intended.
Also just in presence, maybe not like really in, you know, talking to people, but
No. Yeah, but like when you think of Gladiators, you think of Kevster, you think of how good he is, you know. That's That's who gets the interviews, right? That and like Unter, but
yeah.
Yeah, that aside, I don't know. Danteh, I think he brings a pretty potent package. You want to talk about hero pools? Like this kid's shown. You want to talk about a weird hero pool? You know, historically a very good tracer and sombra player, right? Just let's start from brass tacks, right? Started technically as a tank player, then start playing more DPS. I don't know how many times I had people in Discord yelling at me, telling me that Danteh had projectile players. I didn't never get to see him all that much, but let's just throw that out there too. Then this kid's got a Doomfist that can go toe to toe with some of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. And on top of that, he's then learned other main tanks. I don't think there's anybody in this. I don't think there's anybody in this league that can kind of like go toe to toe with that. So I don't know how you approach him for what role he'd be playing. But I think that's a package that I certainly would want on my team, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like he's also more than just like the player that you see on the server. Always
Sure.
like brings a lot of value outside. I once made the statement that there probably wasn't a player that provided more value over the length of their time for as long for a franchise.
True.
You could now argue that Prophet was someone like that because of the attraction. That's fair. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, like Danteh always seemed very, we saw it with the flexibility. We saw it like with the ability to to work in very difficult circumstances in a team that honestly, like he was just astronomically better than most people playing, right?
Yeah.
And through thick and thin, he was with that team, and yeah, it sucks that I get it if your goal really is to win. And for the reasons that you mentioned, why Hawk is a problem, the Outlaws could think, okay, maybe we have someone backlogged for the main tank position. We know there's a bunch of bangers out there. Smurf has announced free agency. Fearless, Hanbin.
Some hitters.
Maybe there's something to be said about Kellen that didn't really get like a fair shake at NYXL.
Sure.
They're still, can someone maximize mag?
Sure.
It's stuff like this, right? Like there's still, and someone, of course, there's still some very good heavy hitters on the market that they could upgrade in. So
if that's that, that game script, then I'm here for it. I get it. Especially again, going back to, the financials. This kid, I can't say for certain that he got like a bag, but I have to imagine that you're paying your franchise player quite a good amount, right? And if we're talking about, big restrictions, that's probably not a contract that I want to re-up, right? I don't know if I'm necessarily super, jazzed about that. I'm not jazzed about him leaving, but I don't know if I can necessarily afford to continue to pay that, especially if we're moving in a different direction. So I get it. But I certainly hope he finds a home, because I think he I don't think deserve is even the right word. I think he just needs to be a starter for an Overwatch League team. I think it'd be an absolute shame if that didn't happen. So
yeah,
hearts out to Danteh. I'm sure he will land on his feet. Last but not least, as we kind of close out the show, we have a new hero that has new abilities that we got to talk about.
Yeah.
So Ramattra, my new favorite hero to hate.
Really?
First thoughts, Yiska. Yes.
Dude, why are you hating Ramattra? I'm quirky and zany. I just want to hate things other people love. Why? That's what I'm basically saying is stop stealing my shtick.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll get off your gimmick here in a second. Let me further explain. I think Ramattra is going to be super fun to play. I think Ramattra is really, really cool. I think Ramattra is well designed. I think if this is what we can expect from Team 4 moving forward, I think we have a lot of depth to play with Overwatch 2, right? Like this is a deep hero. I'm going to learn to hate Ramattra very quickly because everybody's going to want to play them.
Sure.
Everybody is going to want it. This isn't like let's play Kiriko for no. Ramattra has like weird depth and is not like a hero that we've really ever seen before at a role that is very, very important. Mm-hmm. And features systems that I do not trust the average Redditor with. I am going to want to pull my hair out. I am going to pog the absolute shit off when I see this on stage. I think Ramattra is going to be a super fun viewing experience. I think Ramattra is going to possibly dictate a meta of his own. I don't know. But boy, howdy, am I not going to be playing ranked for a hot little bit when this guy hits the stage, let's say.
Yeah, like that's when your DPS queues are short.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I also think it might be a hero that's frustrating to play with, even though it's not like Roadhog levels or something. Even though I will say Roadhog actually, arguably, the least annoying to play with that it's ever been because it's fucking strong.
It's actually pretty good. Weirdly good.
So, yeah, I think this is an. I love the direction. I know I talked to Gamba and he's like, "Oh, this is all over design." I disagree. I love this. I want more of the complexity. Actually, go more balls to the wall. We talked about it like before. I want actually like peak if Philios type of like bonkers balls to the wall. Like the feng shui in your apartment decides how good the hero is through like brainwaves. I don't know, like shoot a random ray and let random
no random. Stop with the random.
Right? Yeah, no RNG, no RNG. But like bottom line being like I want them to be really creative, and I always was a huge fan of like the creative heroes that Blizzard in their games could come up with. I remember Cho'Gall. I pogged
Cho'Gall and Abathur.
Like that. Yeah. That's the thing for. I always thought like at some point Athena would be a hero, and then you would have Abathur functionality.
Oh, okay, sure. Right?
Which would probably break Overwatch considerably, but at this point as well. But I think like. Just go off and create fun and like more buttons. I like more buttons. I like more abilities. I like more complexity. I like interesting ideas. I think you also have to think beforehand. Heroes, a lot of it was like the main gun. The main weapon was like the thing that was unique about them. One shoots grenades, one shoots like hit scan, one shoots like projectiles that go slow, shuriken, that type of stuff, like different weapons. We are practically maxed out on like what's feasibly different mechanics of weapons could look like, right? We took a bunch of archetypes of all the FPS games in. If you think about it, like Hanzo is the crossbow type of weapon, right? Then you have the Demo Man type of Junkrat stuff. Like the Pharah is like the rocket launch, the Quake rocket launcher type of things, right? Like you're eventually running out of archetypical FPS weapons to imitate. And then if you can't innovate there anymore, you gotta innovate somewhere else in the kit. And then I just love just going wide and wild and finding something that really adds a new dimension to Overwatch. I honestly, like the way Kiriko currently plays, it doesn't even feel that complex. It looked really complex in the ways everything worked. But we also, of course, as we always do, we overvalued like certain aspects of the kit. Like, POC, 3 times X, like headshot damage. Oh, it's going to be a killing machine. Actually, she's a power healer, right? Like that's what she's about. The ultimate is like nuts, right?
Yes.
So, I think like the way forward is to look at MOBA mechanics more so than FPS mechanics in terms of like the abilities that can differentiate characters. I think most of the innovation going forward will come from the MOBAverse, not from FPS.
No, would agree. I think anybody who thought we were out of the MOBAverse with Overwatch 2 is just wrong. We just have more of an uptick in terms of FPS gameplay, right? So to get into Ramattra for a little bit, primary fire being Void Accelerator, firing a stream of projectiles in a fixed pattern, which to me, I don't know exactly what that means, and I don't think that the video really explains it all too well through the visuals. But what seems to be explained pretty well is the barrier that he creates. It looks like it feels more like a May wall more than a Sigma barrier. Am I fair to say that? Does that seem like it fits?
Yeah, that's what most people described it as, yeah.
Right. But the big gimmick with Ramattra is that he can transform at will into Nemesis form, which alters his primary fire into a punch forward that creates a wave of energy with every swing, and then his alternate fire being in Nemesis form, a positional damage mitigation move, meaning that he significantly takes reduced damage from the front at the cost of movement speed. And I think that is a very interesting direction or a system to apply to the game, right? Where you could say that Reinhardt has this passively, right? Where it's just like, well, I don't take any damage from the front, but I certainly take a whole lot of damage from behind me. He now kind of has this in a more rigid way, right? It seems like we could be seeing some more heroes that have this system applied to them as well in the future, right? It's not necessarily like a critical hit area, but it's very positional, and I think that's really really cute. I think one thing that people are maybe sleeping on, I haven't heard too much Ramattra discourse, but the Ravenous Vortex, fire a nanoball which explodes when it hits the ground, spreading a damaging field. One, but then affected enemies are also slowed and pulled downward. I think, immediately, what are the first two heroes that come to your mind when you hear that?
So
characters like
who get dragged down? Echo and Pharah, you mean? Or?
Echo, Pharah, you've got your Mercy. What about the Genjis?
Yeah.
The Hanzos, all of the, there's a whole lot more to the game than just like the flying around, right?
Right.
God forbid you interrupt a monkey jump.
Yeah.
Or a wrecking ball. Like there's a lot more here. Yes, like it is going to be severe when a Pharah is yoinked to the ground or maybe even, booped into dying, but if this works the way that I think it might, I think that this is like a really big answer to a lot of like really really like highly mobile tanks, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Hard to say, but
I feel like most of the power will probably come through the pummel, I would think. And actually the ultimate. I think the ultimate could absolutely be a huge game changer. Especially like if you pair it with a Lucio and a speed boost. And it just like you can actually just stay on top.
Sure.
Play something like think about this. Yeah, you can play Reaper with this, I think. I'm a little concerned for his movement. Because he feels am I missing something? There's nothing in his kit that makes him faster anywhere, right?
No. It's much slower, and I think that would be where like yes, Lucio augmenting and covering that weakness is definitely applied, but I don't know that this would be like a rush hero. It doesn't feel anything. I feel like you want to.
I feel like it could very quickly just feel sluggish to get around and like.
Yeah.
Very Sigma-y.
Yes, it feels very pokey. It feels very like attrition based. And then you pop your Nemesis form when you get a pick, and then you run in, right? Yeah. Like it's gonna be about rotating cooldowns and moments of push and pull, and that's where my hatred comes from. But that's just me.
Do you get additional speed when you
enter Nemesis?
At
least not from the.
I think you don't need to because it's ranged, right? Like, yeah. Okay,
yes.
Maybe, yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, your pummel. It doesn't seem like it's real rangy, but it's got some reach to it. Let's say. Now I'm gonna need some help here because I remember rating this, which looks like it was wrong. Annihilation is ultimate. Ramattra enters Nemesis form and creates an energy swarm surrounding himself. The swarm will lash out to enemies nearby, dealing damage and pausing the duration when damage is dealt, thus kind of extending the duration as long as you're hitting somebody, right?
Uh-huh.
Am I crazy for remembering that this reduced damage enemy heroes dealt? Is that not a thing? Or is that like a typo?
I think
I remember.
No, like there was some change there. Yeah, there was some change that happened that was noted by the community. I'm not sure what
they retracted
the update
that.
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Eric is saying Play Overwatch retracted that. When I first read that, I was like, oh my God, this guy is bonkers. He's going to ruin everything. That ult is busted.
Right.
Now, this is a numbers thing. Because this game is not one where we're having really long goats team fights anymore, where we're posturing and we can get a lot of value out of Annihilation. So I think as it stands now, a lot of this power is built or balanced by how long it can be active. And I just don't know if that's really good, right? Yeah. I don't know if I want a long ult so much as a really impactful bursty ult. Like if I could trade this for Sojourn Rail, I think I take Sojourn Rail in an instant, right? Like I just want to kill somebody. I don't want to like slowly whittle them down and have like a really long, it just doesn't feel good. Numbers could say otherwise.
Yeah.
It could be very different depending on what we get in terms of numbers, but at least with what we have in front of us, it doesn't scream super powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like crazy to say that?
Yeah.
So do we think we start the season with a Ramattra meta? Is this meta defining in your eyes?
I mean, keep in mind that theoretically by now we are probably assured that we're going to play the next hero after also by season start.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think they have ample incentive to make it so that it's meta. And also I will say every other hero so far that has come with Overwatch 2, other than Orisa's rework,
sure, yeah,
and Bastion, has had their time at the top of the meta.
The new heroes.
All the new heroes had, right?
Yes.
Sojourn. So it seems likely that the numbers will just be busted. But then again, maybe also the balance is like they're not going to... Either they're going to start strong, everyone plays them, nerf, and then before the season, give it a kick, and then also new hero, and maybe we'll get a completely new meta. It's like just like the meta strategy I see them employing.
Sure. No, I agree. And no, 100%. It's not lost on me that all the new heroes are like coming out a little front loaded, right? And even, going back to like the preseason, we heard that Sojourn was absolutely bonkers good and seeing all kinds of playtime. And then was, nerfed prior to the start of the league. So like, yeah, we probably would have had an entire season of just Sojourn players, right? It wouldn't surprise me that Ramattra gets played, but if you had a gun to my head as it stands right now, I don't know what that looks like, especially if Blizzard does do anything, any other balance changes, let's say, in the meantime. Obviously, there are a few big ones that people want to see changed that would probably plug in real well with Ramattra. So what this looks like come season start, I don't know. But I think a lot of the power, if Annihilation is as kind of meh and as milk toasty as it seems like on paper, it really feels like Ravenous Vortex is going to be like a absolute nightmare for highly mobile tanks to play within, and maybe even mobile DPS to play within, right?
Really depends on the application. Right, yeah.
Yes, the the execution of the ability, how it works, the details of it really, are the linchpin here. But if it works like I think it does, I think we're gonna get like a very slow kind of attrition based meta, which it's a change. It's definitely not what we saw for playoffs. But maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe like you're saying, it's true. Maybe they go like Lucio Reaper and they're just running it down, trying to stay in Nemesis farm as long as possible, and only using the targeted barrier to close the distance. Right?
Yeah,
could be the case as well.
Yeah.
But agreed with a lot of the points you made earlier. This character looks super, super fun. I think if this is the step moving forward for especially how tanks are being played, I think we've got some really exciting. We've got an exciting year ahead of us for new heroes. So sure. Ramattra is going to be a fun one. Last comments there before we skedaddle?
No, I think I'm looking forward. When is Ramattra launching? When is that, next week?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely we'll try
December
a bunch.
6th. Yeah, same.
Of course, like I'm pretty hooked on the rank cope, so I'm probably not going to play too much of Ramattra initially.
Sure.
I usually like start playing like quick play like 3 days, 4 days before the new characters get implemented, just because then I know I will be able to pick the hero because nobody else wants to, and then also I get some practice in. You should like playing it dry into ranked is almost bad mannered.
Oh yeah, no, that's not ideal, but you still get people doing it anyways. Yeah. I know this is incredibly plebby and very kind of lame of me to say. I kind of want to see what his skins look like. This character feels like they're gonna have some like crazy weird skins. Yeah, like absolutely bonker skins that are going to be like super, super cool and fun. That I think people are gonna like just fall in love with. But yeah, no, I'm really jazzed. It was super cool to see at grand finals. And yeah, no, I'm only more excited for the future looking at what this character looks like. So hats off to Team 4. Hopefully Overwatch League can get a free agency deadline set in place and not change it by next week. But we've got some things working. We've got some things cooking for the show, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, Yiska, what's going on with you? Where can people find you?
I mean, I had a bunch of stuff planned around the the window, and then it changed up on me. So I'm trying to figure out what, like, try to figure out content that I could feasibly do. We'll see. I'll cook something up. I'll let you not go alone through the off season because I know it can be boring now.
There you go. All the League boys out there. Stay tuned to Yiska. Me? I don't. Heck if I know, guy. Still working on this project. I'm tired of talking about it because it's so far out. I'm not gonna do it anymore. Doing some doodling. Planning a trip. Writing some stuff. Want to interview some people. Gotta wait for that. Nothing just yet. I gotta figure out what I'm writing this week, so I have to still do that.
I really dug like the not only the article that you did, but like I kept actually like I fell asleep to me reading the article yesterday. I don't know. Like I loved the message. Had to like almost choke up a couple of times while reading it. And then I think honestly, like it's not down to Elliot. I know it needs to be snappy, but I feel like the message is better in the audio only, because like Elliot cut down those pauses during the but pauses, like I try to really intentionally set them. Right? In order to have some meaning in those pauses. I feel like pauses can sometimes be the amplifier to the words between them, right?
I would agree. Yeah.
So Yeah, I understand. Like I would probably narrate differently usually to YouTube, right? But
of course. Yeah.
as like so basically on GG we have like the ability to upload MP3s. So if you go onto the article that was that Joe posted, and you should also be able to find it on my Twitter, then you can read it, but you can also press on the play and then have me read it alongside you reading it. And yeah, I don't know. It was a ton of fun to make, and I also think like great piece, great player. Some of the references were actually like I had to read up on your hyperlinks. That was interesting. I didn't have that knowledge of like how Void came to be and whatnot on backlog.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to once again dive into. But yeah, dope piece.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I've a lot of that stuff. I try to aim to get some kind of reaction out of people, and I know how to make people angry. And now it's getting people to feel a little more something, right? Feel a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe connect a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do another one. Maybe I won't. I don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Stay tuned. Big things playing for the rest of the month, feels like. So stay locked in, especially if you're a Contenders fan. Not gonna say too much because we haven't not signed anything, but gotten things planned out just yet. But yeah, we'll stay tuned. This has been, I think, 272, right? This is 272. Tell me in the YouTube comments if it is 272.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, it's been this episode. See you guys next week. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks so much.
Peace.